Digital marketing for HVAC and home service businesses.
Strategies and stories from industry experts to help you succeed.
Aloha, y'all. Welcome to the OutWork'em podcast. I'm here with my homie Matt, and I'm stoked about today. Decided to shoot from the hip. I had a conversation this past week with a guy who told me he liked the ones that weren't a Q&A format. Matt and I have got to know each other here and there over the years, living in the same place in Phoenix, Arizona at times. So I thought today would be a good one just to have a conversation, see where things go, and have some fun. Matt Andrews, welcome to the show. Please tell the viewers where they can find your business name, and anything else you'd like to share.
Honor and a privilege. Thank you so much. We clean toilets, and we clean toilets in Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's called Sparkly, Sparkly, highly rated local home cleaning business.
Nice. How'd you find yourself in the cleaning business?
Ever since I was a young lad, it was my dream. I thought, if I can't be a rock star with this insecure-based hair, I might as well become a toilet cleaner. Jokes and sarcasm, big part of my repertoire.
I like it.
My wife and I we met in the advertising agency, digital agency field. We did that for 10 years, and then we ran away together, and we decided to do our own thing. So after working for people for 10 years in the agency world, we had a lot of experience in copywriting, web design, digital ad management, and we said, hey, let's do this, just the two of us. I have a sales background as well. Mm-hmm. So we were quite accustomed to doing a lot of spec work and outbound sales. So we did that for a year, roughly, and we just got burnt out. We already had the 10 years working for people. Mm-hmm. And we were doing so much work with the outbound sales and putting in so much time with spec work that we knew we wanted something else. And people in her family had done home cleaning businesses, and we got the skinny on that. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I could flex some of our backgrounds in marketing and advertising on this. And it's kind of a kismet thing. So I started to entertain it, and I told a couple of friends. And then I had a buddy who still does, this was 10 years ago, he owns a treatment center for addiction, substance abuse. And he said, hey, I hear that you are starting a cleaning business. And I hadn't. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, do you have people ready to go? And I didn't. And I go, yes, sir. And he's like, great, can you come and start cleaning our treatment center twice a week, starting next week? And I'm like, absolutely, dude.
Yeah.
And we had nothing. So I scrambled. We weren't even living in that city at the time where he wanted service. And I reached out to everyone I knew and found somebody who had experience in cleaning, and the rest is history, man.
That's awesome. It's all based on a lie. I love it. That's amazing.
I mean, most of life is just based on ultra deceit, and it happened so fast, right? It was it's like you couldn't stop it, right? And it's like seems like that's such a that's like the story of my life. I mean, I couldn't stop my wife and I from getting together. I mean, she was married at the time. I was with various situations. And it just you couldn't you couldn't stop it. It's almost like, I'm drug and alcohol free for 17 years, and it's like I was spiraling toward that, and I don't think I could have stopped that either. So there definitely seems to be something in the air.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I jokingly said it's all based on a lie. I mean, you guys were ready. I'm sure if you had to, y'all would have drove to that city and got dirty.
We did. I mean, what ended up happening is we got that first account, and we all of a sudden started to get more clients. And we're like, holy cow, we're going to have to either hire more people to clean and or go do it ourselves. So we packed our bags and drove 2,000 miles. Literally just a few weeks after that, story that I mentioned. And we cleaned for the first several months. We had no experience cleaning. So we learned the hard way. Our first few months in business, we made every mistake I think you can, from employment classification. All of our cleaners now are employees. They started out as 1099. And we had our first kind of threat on employment classification, which caused us to convert everyone to employees. Yeah. We used all the wrong chemicals, and we found that out the hard way by damaging $3,000 to $4,000 worth of faucets in someone's house, and then obviously having to replace all that. And then, it's been a process of subtraction and reduction more than additive. Much like many things in life.
Yeah. So you drove 2,000 miles from where to where?
From California to Wisconsin. It's where we're from, Wisconsin. We were living in California at the time, and we were just we were kind of just pulling on the thread, man. Right? Like we were just pulling on the thread, and we've been together now 11 years, married for almost 3, and in that 11-year time span, 10 of it's this business, and we've lived in multiple cities for various reasons. The heavy amount of the reasons where we were opening up locations for the cleaning business in those cities, and we had, again, no idea what we were getting into. I think, and I joke with her about it, is like I was naive and young enough to make some really stupid decisions and to take some big swings. Thank God I wasn't smart enough to not, I
hear you on that one. For sure, I can relate. Wow, so that's cool. And so you were in California, drove 2,000 miles back to where you grew up. And, what first brought you out to California? Was it the advertising gig, or was that where you were working with the ad agencies and stuff? Or
well, like any fun young couple that runs away together, you have to make some big decisions as fast as you can. I was born in Florida. I don't remember it. I was too young. Yeah. And we moved up to Wisconsin right away, my mother and I. My father was from Canada, and he needed I don't know if it was called a green card at the time. He needed citizenship. And they connected and got married for that reason, and then accidentally I came about. So once I came into the picture, the nature of their relationship changed. So I had grown up and spent the first 30 years of my life in southeast Wisconsin, in the greater Milwaukee area, and I don't know what it is, a past life, a karmic entanglement. I had always wanted to leave. My first sponsor told me, Matt, you're terminally hip and you're fatally cool. And at the time, I thought that was a compliment. And he said, no, it's not. But I always had this kind of, chip on my shoulder. I was going to prove to the world I was worth a damn. You know, I was going to prove to the father I never met that I could do some stuff. I could take some, like I said, big swings. And again, I think it is just this fire that I had inside of me that wanted to try something new. So, you know, there was some help with the choosing that state specifically because her, you know, she had relatives there. But other than just a couple of people, we knew nobody. And we've actually essentially every place we've ever moved, we knew nobody, and we just kind of figured it out. And it's been wild, man. I mean, I think 6-7 different cities in 11 years.
Yeah. So we got to meet when you decided to pack your bags and move to Phoenix, Arizona. We first met, I believe, at Optimize. Shout out to Optimize. It's your local, or it's your local watering hole for cold plunge, infrared sauna, all that fun stuff. And my wife and I frequent there, and we crossed paths with Matt and his wife, Crystal, and they were just weird enough that we wanted to get to know them. You know, the world can be a boring place, and I can say that it's awesome to meet people that are authentic and, you know, expressive and open to connect and chat. And I remember the first time we had a meal together, I think might have been we had you guys over, and we talked for a while after, and you shared with me a lot about your a little bit about the story you just shared, but then we also ended up touching on the recovery aspect of things because my wife also, you know, was in a recovery program for a while and overcame a lot from the age range of like 15 to 19. So she's 33 now. I don't really ever hear her talk about how many years or anything she has sober, but it's probably something like that, 11, 12, 14 maybe. And it sounds like your business, do you hire people who are looking for jobs that are trying to get on their feet, stuff like that? Is that a thing that was appealing to you, to be able to provide employment to people who have kind of proved that they're, you know, making their way? Or is it kind of like you want to focus on people with experience, and, you know, or maybe is that something you had to figure out over time, how to best hire?
I think it's, you know, I often something Crystal and I talk about, not just with our labor, like with, you know, with a staffing situation, but I think with any humans and relationships in life is like kind of good faith or bad faith actors. And like, whether it's, I think, cleaning or digital marketing or, you know, whatever kind of insert the function, it's so much harder to teach someone to have like a good character than it is to pull a certain kind of lever, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, man, I mean, when we were starting out, you know, I have such a huge community of sober people, and we gave a lot of people a lot of opportunities, I think, and I don't want to, it sounds so kind of weird as if like we gave these opportunities. I mean, we're just here, man. You know, we're just kind of,
you needed their help.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, that's the thing too. It's like, you know, you right place, right time, whatever it is. Who knows? But we're all just kind of walking each other home, right? So we're all just engaging in this dance we call life. But you know, I think just the idea, for me, it was to get my head around this idea of employing people. You know, I growing up in the ad industry, it was a lot of hierarchy and, you know, labels and I was very susceptible to that, you know, a very insecure guy dying for your acceptance. Like, I'm like, oh, please give me any title that makes me think I'm important. And starting the business and then having like employees and having that number grow, and a lot of other intersections, it was like, it really started to transition several things. One is me not caring about that at all, and almost wearing it like a very uncomfortable sweater. And then, giving people jobs, so to speak, it's like, I'm not the one giving them jobs. I mean, the universe is giving them jobs. Our clients are the reason why we are able to employ people. And I think right now, today, after lots of ups and downs, the biggest thing is the good faith actors. And we do our best, with our interviewing process and all the background checks. We do all the stuff like any other, I think, responsible business, especially a business that's having people enter your home, would do. But no one's perfect and nothing's perfect. So you kind of got to roll with the punches, and you decide what pluses and minuses you want to take on. And I think the other thing I'll say about that is, whatever frequency someone's radiating, I think is the wavelength and frequency that you attract. So I like to think that we try to attract the best we can in terms of people on a more loving frequency.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. I really feel like it works. The vibe that you decide you want to attract. In my opinion, if I, revisit that feeling, that emotion, and I encounter more people that open up in that way or show up with that energy. So it's cool to hear you feel similarly about it. I always like to ask questions around hiring people, how you like to find people. I also like to ask questions around like expansion. For example, we're not like Joe Rogan here on the OutWork'em podcast. We don't have millions or hundreds of millions of streams and subscribers, but the people who do listen are oftentimes other small business owners, other local service businesses, and sometimes it's someone who's just trying to get started maybe in a local service business. So when you decided or they have something started and they want to grow it. So you had this one location that you were doing business in. What was it like to decide to grow and expand beyond that? I mean, last time we chatted, I believe you said you manage a team of 40, it sounds like, and you're growing. So I'd love to hear about that journey of the challenge or lack of challenge to expand and what that felt like, and any advice you could share to someone who might be trying to better their life.
Yeah, well, so several things. I guess one is, in terms of what we do and being in multiple cities, it wasn't as if we sat in one place and then just started deploying. We actually physically lived in those cities. So like, in terms of what we do as a home service business, to understand the market physically there, oh my gosh, wonders. I mean, so I can sit behind my laptop and I can look up, what the competition looks like on Google, what it looks like on Yelp, what it might look like, and then within Google and the maps and the GBP and the LSA and everything else and the SERP. And then I can look at minimum wage. I can, get a lot of data points just behind my screen. But actually physically being in these cultures and then understanding the city and the roads, because again, home service people are driving from their home and then going to other homes the entire day, and getting a handle on like go back to the vibe. That's been massively important and helpful for us. So that's the one thing I kind of want to mention. I think the second thing with the growing idea, there's a joke that we make in my recovery program. It's like they're called growing pains, not growing feel goods. And, I read this book when I was young. I'm 41. I was like 18. I read this book called The Little Red Book of Sales by Jeffrey Gitomer. And I forget how I even received it. And what I remember from it is the short version is like, stop being a victim. And that also intersects really well with, again, the recovery program I'm in. I have a good friend of mine who says, I came in to recovery speaking one language, and that language was victimese. So there's no like silver bullet with growing and all that stuff other than like leaning into the edge of it all, and making mistakes. One of the things Crystal and I talk a lot about is let's fail fast. So we actually had, so there's like our office staff, but then there's kind of like obviously the field. And I've made every mistake I think you can in both. Keeping people too long out of fear, micromanaging them, kind of not being as good at trying to adapt to their personalities. So the idea that I really try to focus, Crystal and I try to focus on today with the growth idea is obviously everyone says it's systems, right? And we're a machine. So we have systems that we've kind of figured out, and some of them are stapled together looking, but they're still a system. We have a lot of templates, a lot of procedural stuff. But the other big thing is trying to figure out how people want to work. So once you realize that you got a good employee, and I'll say today, our office staff, they're great, and I want to keep them all. So right now for us is like everything has to go through the filter of how do you keep that person, right? So if you're going to keep them, keep them. So whether it's through bonuses and rewards or incentives or love, and not micromanaging them, that's a big thing. The scalability, automate as much as you can. But I think a lot of people automate too much.
Gotcha. I feel you. There's two things. I want to touch on the automation piece, but also what you mentioned about micromanaging. With us also growing our team, hiring people, I'm finding that there's what I viewed as not micromanaging someone sometimes turns into them not feeling like they have a clear direction sometimes, and that's maybe just different people's style of wanting to be managed, I'm noticing, because it might work for someone and not for someone else. So I'm working on finding the secret sauce on how I need to hire and how I need to manage based on, personality assessments, DISC assessment, Colby testing. Are you using any of those tests or things like that in your hiring process to help you find people?
Yeah, I'm not that smart, so I use my gut.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm trying. Like you mentioned, I'm asking because I don't feel like I've perfected it, and I hear people say they trust their gut and they're successful, and I've heard people say like, "Oh, I use these two tests and I only hire high fact finder, high follow through people for these roles. Unless it's a creative role, then I'll compromise and I hire others." So I just like to ask.
Well, what's interesting, right? It's like when you're quote unquote hiring somebody, it's like there's like their output, right? So what's their production capability? Then there's their character. What's like their character? Then there's how much do they cost, right? Yeah. Like, can you afford them or not?
Yeah.
And we're obviously very imperfect, but it's like, again, back to the gut thing, especially with the office staffing. Okay, can you execute? Are you a good person? And then like kind of trying to get ahead of it right away with what's their love language? As weird as that might sound, like, that's one thing I think I try to really play with every day. Like, okay, do they need a contact? Do they need a touch point? Do they need some coaching? But I think really for me, it's like we don't. I mean, I'm sure if we were some like big complex business, that would probably be helpful. I don't know. I hate stuff like that. I don't know. I just don't like that stuff.
Me too. I hated them so much when people were giving me these assessments whenever I came out of college and I was applying for jobs. I was like, oh, they're trying to put me in a box. Like, I almost didn't even want the job as soon as I got the test. And then I started to get curious about them, and I noticed that I scored differently on the tests at different periods in my life.
Yeah.
And supposedly it's supposed to be like, oh, that's who you are. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm either just like really moody or irritable, or I'm bipolar, I guess, because I score differently. So I guess I started to think like, all right, well, there's nothing wrong with me getting a snapshot of how they're showing up right now in this moment. I've kind of zoomed out a lot to say, oh, I'm not going to label them as this. I'm going to say this is who they're showing up as right now in this season of life, and I'll keep a pulse on that. And I'm planning on retesting people, probably unnecessarily, just to run out my experiment on these tests to see if there's people who are consistently scoring similar, or people that for whatever reason decide. The test for whatever reason decides that they're showing up differently, 18 months down the road. So, just a little thought I had, and if you have anything else you want to say about that, cool. If not, the next thing is the automation.
Let me comment on that. This other stuff. So the other thing too, I forget which book. Maybe it was in that book I referenced. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say I've read a lot of books, but that sounds kind of douchey. But I forget which book it is or who I heard it from. But something I heard early on was like, the business has to come above any personality. Mm-hmm. And I read something about for the speaking to the owners. Mm-hmm. Hey, if you're going to own a business, are you willing to cut your arm off for the business to succeed? Clearly a bit hyperbolic. Mm-hmm. But that, I don't know why, that thought has stuck with me. Yeah. So I kind of try to come back to first principles on a lot of different things, including this question about staffing and hiring. And the first principle idea of like, does a business come before my personality and my preferences? And then are we hiring people? They're not going to, I'm never expecting them to care about the business to the degree Crystal and I do. But I think honestly, the office staff we have today, they do. I mean, I think people want to feel empowered. I think people want to feel, loved and supported and trusted. And the first principle for us is hiring people that align with that too, and energetically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, what you said about the love languages and the first principles, hiring for those traits, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the books. Oh, you mentioned books before the automation thing. I'm trying to get a lot better at telling people if I listened to a book or if I read a book, because I noticed that I asked someone one day like, hey, did you read it or did you listen to it? And I was only asking because I listened to that book and I really liked the narrator, and I wanted to ask them about what they thought of all the voices and stuff. And they were kind of like, I could tell they were kind of like, they felt attacked because they listened to it and they said they read it. And I was like, I listened to it too. No, it's all good. So just curious, do you do audiobooks too, or do you just like to read the regular paper books?
So I'm 41, so 17 years ago, I, got into a situation where my life depended, so to speak, as I was told, was on not only reading a specific book, but studying that book. Mm-hmm. And I was instructed right away to study it. And then I was instructed to use highlighters and pens. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of liked it. So I got into a lot of spiritual books at that time. Mm-hmm. And anytime I would be told, and granted, I forget what year that is, but back then Audible wasn't a big thing. But so I just got in the habit, right? My muscle memory was like holding a book and underlining and highlighting. And for the most part, that's what I do today when I do. I mean, I think I have the Wayne Dyer Tao Te Ching.
Okay.
And the Hawkins book, Letting Go, Pathway to Surrender. Those are like the most two recent that I've been underlining.
Mm-hmm.
And, really quick funny story about that.
Yeah.
How that, again, so back to not to make this a super spiritual talk, but to me it's all everything.
Good. Awesome.
Everything's the same thing. So like I was young and I had this girl that I was really interested in, and she asked me if I had read this one specific spiritual book, and I hadn't. And again, I said yes. So I got the book, a new copy, and I read it in case she asked me about it, and I just highlighted and underlined and put little notes and kind of,
spilled coffee on it.
I didn't. I should have. But I did all that. And then I said, oh, hey, I did it. It was like the fastest book I ever read. And I'm like, hey, that book you asked about, I figured I'd lend you my copy. Mm-hmm. But, it's interesting is just the other day, Crystal in the sauna turned on, this is the funniest thing, an audio book. And I never listened to him. And it wasn't even a book. It was a talk from Bruce Lipton and Wayne Dyer from, I think, 2012 that ended up being 3 hours of their vibe. And it was like, oh, this is like the first audiobook I've listened to. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even a book. So anyways, continue.
No, cool. It's awesome. And to your comment of making it all spiritual, I'm with you. It's all one and the same. I definitely have a lot of podcasts and people who get scheduled that I don't have as much rapport with on a personal level as you. So it tends to be
we're rapporting hard right now.
Hard. But no, it's cool because the Q&A style, keeping it more business, is fun, and some people, that's their vibe. They want to keep business and life separate. They're a little more private, and this conversation, see where it goes. The audio book. Did you download Audible yet? Do you have Audible?
So Crystal uses Spotify.
Gotcha.
And she has, so we have like a family plan. Mm-hmm. And I want to riff on the other thing too, if you don't mind. The other comment use. Okay, but really quick. So she has a family plan, and she's the only person, because she's at the top apparently of the account holder. So I can't even listen to audiobooks through Spotify, but she can. So that's why she plays them now when we're in the sauna together. The other thing, though, if you don't mind me just riffing,
let's go for it.
It's like the idea of compartmentalizing my life. Again, one of the things that I was taught early on is this idea of like, a certain type of person. You could call them like, clearly. So it's clearly I'm dancing around the fact that obviously I said I'm in recovery, I'm sober, that like I struggled with addiction when I was young, and that type of person, we're told, leads a double life, right? And I think that's an understatement of the century. Mm-hmm. And for me, what I ended up realizing was that living in a way where I was compartmentalizing things just didn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And, we're talking right now, when I get off of this, I'm going to go talk to my wife and our office staff, and I'm going to, I think ideally be pretty darn similar to how I am with you. Yeah. So like, I just don't want to live like that. I have lived like that, and it doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. There's a certain fracturing within my system. And I think too, it's like the idea of spiritual principles, like, oh, you're not going to practice spiritual principles in your business. Yeah. That's like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. Like, so you can do that, but then that's the container that you're operating in every single day. So it's like the idea that I should behave and be this person here and then this person here, that to me is just stupid. Like, I just can't live like that. And I shouldn't say it's stupid, because I have lived like that. Yeah. It's just, it doesn't work for me anymore. It's not attractive to me. Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm going to chime in here with you. You're bringing up some like memories and thoughts, contemplations I've had around this idea of showing up differently in different environments. But first, there's a quote that was shared with me years ago. It's probably my first mentor, actually, when I had a sales job. He said that this is how he sees me, and it's a master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation. In his mind, he is, just doing one and the same, something along those lines. And I felt that for a while whenever he was sharing with me, because I like competition, I like competing. So business and work, or when I had my sales job, it just all seemed like a new game I was playing with a different scoreboard instead of a round basketball that I was trying to put in the hoop. I was playing a different game. And then kind of like showing up differently in different environments. I've always noticed that I'm myself. I feel like people tell me they feel like I'm being myself, but I do adopt like traits or patterns of communication or expression and from the different environments or communities I'm in. I think it might have come from, like, I came from a family, my parents divorced when I was, I think, a little bit older than one. At least that's what they told me. I wasn't old enough to remember. And then my mom got remarried when I was, I think, a little older than two. And so I lived my mom's house, my dad's house, grandparents' house on this side, the other side, aunts, cousins. There were different rules everywhere. People behaved different everywhere. So I think that was when I really reflected on it. That was like the beginning of me maybe taking on this like chameleon trait to thrive in different environments. And then it kind of expanded. I went to a Catholic school, and the rules there were completely different than, for example, my dad worked at a hospital that was not really close to where we lived. He knew I liked basketball, so I think whenever I was like 9 or maybe like somewhere between like 9 and 11, he started to drop me off in the projects to play basketball. And I was the only person who looked like me there, for sure. And he'd pick me up, 3, 4, 5 hours later. Nowadays he'd probably get CPS called on him. And but it was the best thing I feel that probably ever happened to me, because it was a complete contrast to my reality. And I had already grew up in all these different environments, so I think I was able to have a lot of fun and be accepted, and it really helped my basketball skills for sure, because I definitely wasn't getting any better playing with all the people, all the white guys in my community. So that's something I think about, like being authentic versus how I've noticed myself. Like, I jump into all these different environments, and to get people to open up or to connect with them and to relate, I do notice, like, if I stay somewhere like in another country for like a month or two, I might adopt an accent. It's weird, and I'm not even thinking about it. And sometimes I'll contemplate if that's being not authentic, and I'm like, oh, and then I just kind of go, no, I'm not like putting an effort into changing. It's just I feel my attempt to connect, and I definitely lean into the trying to learn what someone else's love language is, to love, to have them feel love and receive love from maybe my actions. So there's my riff, my rant.
I don't know, man. I think I don't want to say. I do want to say. I think you're selling yourself short a little bit. I think like every interaction I've had with you, there's a certain kind of consistency, and we're all products of our environment, right? Mm-hmm. That's just, I think, biological. And now I live in I'm in Arizona, and now I'm like, oh, let me try to become a cowboy, right, or whatever, you know. And I lived in California. Oh, I want to look like a surfer guy, and so I've had so much kind of fun, I think, with the aesthetic and design of it all. And but in terms of like the inner core, right, the inner kind of set of spirit, you know, and again that first principle idea of like, you know, is there trust built or not? And I think you kind of just know, like you can just play the game with yourself or your significant other. Like, hey, do you trust that person? And it's just like, yeah. Hey, do you trust that person? Anything other than a F yes is a no. And I think that the trust comes from the consistency of the character and the spirit of that person, whether or not their accents coming in or out, or their clothing or hair or whatever. You know, and that's, to me, again, back to the spiritual connection of it all and the language of the heart of it all. You know, it's like, this is my 2 cents on that.
I like it. No, thanks for the reflection, because, yeah, it's something I thought of here and there, and I definitely come in contact with people who I don't really, I don't give a fuck what they would, you know, share or, you know, think about it, and then, you know, the I don't give a fuck mentality on it is serving me, but also I can't say that I'm not curious to hear. So even though I might not care, I might just let it roll off my shoulder. I love hearing how that is received or digested by people whenever I either just show up or whenever I share like how I've processed this in the past.
I think the other thing too with what we're talking about is I try to come at it from an orientation that I don't know, right? So I don't know, period.
Yeah.
Including, who am I? Who is this Matt Andrews character? Who I don't know, right? Like, I think it's this. I think it's the thing that for sure is going to go back into the ground. Whether I'm cremated, chopped up, or just tossed in you know, this thing that I think I am, money back guarantee, it's going away.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a funny little thing to play with.
Yeah.
But then coming from that position of like, so then within that, like, I think another thing we say in the program I'm in is the word of abandonment. And I was told early on, Matt, what's inside of an abandoned building, right? Nothing. So like, can I be an open vessel? And it's like, there's another joke is like, what's the first thing a big egoic person gets back? Their opinion, right? The ego doesn't like to be unemployed. So it's like, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? Does it need to be said by me? Yeah. You know, like, the great way is easy for those who have no way, right? As we were talking about Tao Te Ching. It's like, so it's like, I don't know, man. And that's another thing too. It's like we say a lot, my friends and I, is like, don't take yourself so damn seriously. Like, loosen the grip, man. I really quick, there's this guy, Danny, he passed about 1.5 years ago. And knew him for a long time. He had cancer, and I got to see him in person like 2 months before he passed. And wise, old, successful guy. And I said, Danny, what's the answer to life, bro? And he put his arm out, and he said, grab my arm. And I grabbed it, and he said, squeeze it as hard as you can. And I squeeze it. He's like, keep going. I go, okay. And he's like, don't stop. And I'm like, dude, I'm sick of this. He's like, oh, okay, let go. I let go. He said, all right, now do it real loose and limp. So I go like that. And he said, which one can you do for the rest of your life easier? It's like, dude, just lighten up, man. You know, like, if you want to tame a wild horse, give it an open range. That goes for yourself.
I like
too,
that.
You know?
No, that's cool. Appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun to explore those things. The other question I wanted to ask you was the one you said about first principles and people automating too much. I'd love to hear, you know, what that first principles process is to you. I hear a lot of people describe it as like 3 steps, and then automating should be like the last step, not the first. How does that, do those two relate to you, or those two different threads that you were bringing up that I'm just connecting because that's how I connect them.
Yeah, you're more intelligent than me on that stuff. I don't know, man. I'm not smart enough, but so the podcast world's a big world right now, and growing, Any two idiots are trying to do podcast stuff, right? I mean, and, it's interesting is, like, Crystal and I find ourselves at night, and we're like, what do we watch? What do we put on TV? And it's like, we end up going to, like, YouTube, and, like, watching podcasts.
Yeah.
Versus, we really got into White Lotus there for a second, But
no spoilers. I didn't watch season 3 yet. I always watch it when I go home and visit my family. So
I can't get enough. Season 3 is insane. And or we'll watch Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm a big Larry David fan, like Curb Your Enthusiasm. But other than that, I struggle. And we've talked about it at great length, she and I. What's changed? Has it changed, or have we changed? Or has the collective subconscious or our conscious changed? So, the idea of automating, I think, like, when you look at that concept, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that. In my business, people will go and automate to the degree where there's almost no human touch. And I would like human touch. We will never have a robot in our house, okay? And I think people will. I think in 5 years or less, I think eventually everyone's going to end up having a quote-unquote, or for the most part, 80-20, we're going to have robots in their house. So it's like, I like the first principle of I'm a human, and I'd like to continue to have this human experience, and we will adapt to the culture as best we can while having a human experience. And then at that point, to me, it's like, then you just kind of throw shit at the wall and see what's working for you too. Because the other thing too, it's like, you got what's working for you, right? So like, what if you started cleaning business today and I started cleaning business today, they also have to fit within our lifestyles.
Yep.
So it's like, and the other thing is that with all this said, the market dictates it all. And I'm a big libertarian kind of idea-oriented guy, I think. The free market will take care of everything. It's economics. It's human behavior and what people adapt to. So no, I wish I thought it through. Like, here's my 5-step process of first principles, meeting, automation, and blah blah blah. I mean,
yeah. Cool. Yeah, I heard those thoughts come up. First principles and automation, they were in close proximity. And there's a clip from Elon that circulates around the internet where he talks about first principles and he calls people out for automating too early in a process. And I was curious if, he said it, there's other people parroting him and putting it in their own language. And then my little brother, he's more of like the engineering mindset. He's a chemical engineer, and when I talk to him about a problem sometimes, I'll hear him kind of break it down that way. So, like identifying the problem, first, and then breaking it down into components, reasoning the basics, and then coming up with a solution. And the first solution being an automation is where people are pointing at that problem. So when you said about first principles, and then shortly after you said people are automating too soon or too much, I was wondering if that had been your experience already. But what you were sharing makes perfect sense too. It's like you are saying that in your own words. You're saying you gotta see what sticks. Do it, see what sticks, and then maybe it makes sense to automate. Maybe it doesn't. But yeah, I'm hesitant to automate something before I've kind of done it enough to almost like stress test it. So like if I find a solution and I'm executing that solution, I find myself naturally, rather than just doing it the same way every time, I'll do that solution kind of the same, and I'll keep trying to make it more efficient until it eventually breaks. and then I'll backpedal, and then I'm like, okay, this is where it broke. So I know I need to automate the way I did it, like maybe 2 steps ago, rather than, how it failed. So it's kind of how I've been approaching automation and even implementing new ideas or strategies, testing things.
Well, can I give you 2 examples?
Please.
So here's one where we automated way too late. Okay. So it took us 7 years in business to adopt software that would send out automatic reminders and check-in emails. So this sounds insane. For 7 years, we were paying somebody to draft however many amount of emails every single day. Yep. Because we were afraid of the software screwing something up. And we wanted to be so tight. Do you know what I mean? Like, we wanted to be so perfect, right? And the whole, like, good's the enemy of the best kind of thing.
You had a strong grip on it.
We wanted to be so dialed in. And 7 years, finally we deployed the software. And it was like, God, why didn't we start this sooner? Then, also, we're like, some, like, in our category, people will do instant booking. So that's not what we do. What we do is you fill out the form. We actually have a person literally who sends you an email with a quote, and then literally will talk to you on the phone or through email, a human, not AI, not a software, and they'll have an interaction with you. And a lot of companies who do what I do, you just click, 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 and then especially the other thing is they send it to 1099 contractors, which is a misclassification, and we don't do that. But, click, 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 and then and then that's it. We tested that out. We tested out the instant booking, and we got more complaints, like grief and issues with the experience, and B, we got lower bookings.
Yeah.
So we pulled it, and we went back to the old model that we had, and we still have that today. And what's interesting in my category is other people have done the same thing, where they've gone back to it. I think a lot of that kind of stuff, too, just comes down to, like you're saying, the first thing to be the automation is like, how many people I've talked to that are just like, oh, so like you start a business and then you sit on a beach. No offense, right? It's like, are you high? Like, do you have any idea how hard it is to start a business? Yeah. And to make it past the first few years, let alone grow? It takes literally every ounce of your soul, right? Every ounce of my fucking soul has gone into this business to not only initiate it, activate, but grow it. And back to the first principle thing with automation and everything else, at the end of the day, what's my objective? In anything in life, right? Yep. Like Crystal and I talk about it all the time. Okay, what are you trying to achieve? So I had a good friend, Thaddeus, early on when I was getting sober. He was just like, what are you trying to achieve, my son? And like, do we ever pause and ask that self-inquiry? So the objective is, I sell house cleanings. So if you have a home, that home needs to get cleaned. You need to be happy. The person we're employing needs to be happy and satisfied to the best of their ability. Money, there's never enough money, right? How much is the perfect amount of money? $10 on what I have now. But pay a fair wage that's competitive with the market, that allows profit margin for us to have a sustainable business and clean the house and do a pretty darn good job. That's it. And if any automation enhances that, do it. If it takes away from that, scrap it.
Yeah. True that. So when you say scrap it, what is an automation that you've scrapped? Like
the instant that instant booking, like okay. That's one example.
But did you feel like you do you feel like you did it too soon, or like any time you would have done it would have been bad? So it's like,
I don't know if it's any time, but just when we deployed it. I mean, and this is not exactly the same thing. We're using the A word a lot, but like, one of the other things a lot of people in my category do is they take their office staff and they offshore the whole thing. Right? And it's obviously a lot more affordable. And we played around with that here and there. We never went full blown, right? So we started to play around with that, and we just didn't like it. So I got back to, like, you kind of have to enjoy your life too, right? Yeah. So it's like we made more money when we were offshoring tasks to office staff, because it's obviously a lower overhead in different countries. Our office staff is all in the States. Does it cost us more money? Absolutely. Does doing W-2 cost us more money than a 1099. Absolutely. But they're like peace of mind, man. You get, none of us get out of here alive. So it's like on a daily basis, where do I want my cortisol or fight or flight? Do I want to be in homeostasis more? Or be like, I'm living on adrenaline and cortisol? I mean, no thanks. I've done that. And then I think the body will say no. You know, I threw up my back. I had stomach issues. And like, that's just how I'm built, you know? And the other thing is running a business with your significant other, right? As you know. And we have to have that as a cohesive part of the goal too.
Yeah.
And if it was easy, all of this, everyone would do it. But that's the challenge. And I think for whatever reason, I am excited about challenges. Really quick, I'm learning guitar. I don't know guitar. I suck.
Yeah.
But I'm taking lessons. And right before this, you know, I'm like, Now, would I like to push the automate button and be like, but the journey is the destination, as cheesy as it sounds. Like, that's the whole experience. The whole experience is all that, riding the wave, man.
That's awesome. You ever listen to Estas Tone?
No.
Cool. I'm going to shoot you over a song. Probably my favorite guitarist, maybe my favorite musician. I'll send you a YouTube video because he's a vibe. Just post it up. I think he's like in Barcelona somewhere. Just pulls out his guitar, starts playing like inconspicuously, and what he's putting out, there's just like masses of people showing up. Like, what is going on here? So I'm stoked to shoot that over your way. We've been at it for 55 minutes or so. I'm stoked. This is no shade at my prior podcast, but this has probably been one of the most fun that I've had on a podcast. I feel like the conversation weaving between business and esoteric studies and philosophy and kind of blending it all together has been fun. We even got a little engineering in there with the first principles. So I want to say thanks for going on this journey with me. Lastly, so you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast you're in Milwaukee, Las Vegas, Nashville, and if anyone's interested in, you know, finding you to clean their house, or also I feel like another challenge is to hire people. You know, are you hiring in any of those places? Are you taking on new clients in all those locations? Like, just give us a little blurb on how either people looking for a job or people who want you to clean their house could get in contact with you, and who should.
Yeah, man. I mean, sparklyhousecleaning.com, and we are always hiring. And just since you brought it up and you were inquiring about staffing and stuff and scaling, one of the things I'll say that we deployed right after COVID stuff, or not after, but in the middle of COVID, is we moved to like an always hiring model. Okay. So like always be closing, ABC, always be hiring. What would kill my soul from a scalability perspective, how to grow, is more client demand without being able to fulfill it. So does it cost us, again, more money to always be hiring? 1,000%. But that's one of the tips I would say is always reinvest. We're pretty frugal. We reinvest in the business a ton, and especially your staff. You've got to reinvest in your staff.
Awesome. Reinvest in your people. I love it. I'll let that be the sign off. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you jumping on the pod. I'm gonna hit stop on the recording, and we'll have a little side chatter that, you know, secret stuff after the pod.
Fun. Thank you, dude.